With spring ball underway, Colorado continues to lose players at a position they cannot lose them at.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borber. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers, join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcast. So thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you guys for giving me to 5,000 subscribers. A little round of applause. Appreciate all the support. We're talking about some departures. Colorado started spring ball yesterday, and we've already seen some guys leave. Arden Walker has a broken hand, so he didn't leave, but he will not be able to practice for a hot minute. He has like I said, a broken hand and will not be able to partake in any of the spring practices, which, I mean, they did get depth on the defensive line, so that doesn't really hurt. But they did lose two players, one of which, according to Brian Howell, can come back, but the other one is done. Demoy Kennedy, linebacker, is done. He is no longer at Colorado. He is the former Alabama transfer, and he was someone who was expected to kind of have a major role, and that linebacker group, which I've been telling you guys, was as weak as it gets, like as weak as like a sixth grader's comeback to someone that offended them, is now even weaker. They have no size, they have no experience, and they're going to have to hit the portal very hard again. And it's going to be difficult to find quality linebackers during that spring portal unless a program loses someone who is a key contributor, like losing DJ Lundy and now Demoy Kennedy. This linebacker group is looking scarce. They also lost David Connor, an offensive lineman who at one point was someone who I thought maybe could contend for a starting role. He was a sophomore, transferred in from Florida, and did not play last year due to injury. He was recorded or was shown in the well-off media videos. Like, I think it was probably one of the first ones that the new offense linemen were there, and they were telling him, like, dude, we're here to take your spot. And they were going at it with him, and clearly he just didn't find his role or his niche, if you will. And so Colorado's offense line loses a player, but I think that they are still, in a sense, they can still survive without him, simply because they have Jordan Seaton, they have Hank Zelinkas at center, they have Khalil Benson, Yakiri Walker, Savion Washington is also there. He started a lot of games for them. They have Tyler Brown, who's kind of like looks like a swingman to me. Kind of feel like he'll be wherever they need him to go type of guy. They have Phillip Houston, Isaiah Jada, Tyler Johnson, Justin Mayers, and it wouldn't shock me if they went out and landed another transfer just because. And yeah, so David Connor's out, which I don't feel like that's too big of a loss because we never really seen him play. We never really saw what he was capable of. And so you can't really lose something that you never had. But Demoy Kennedy's a tough loss in the sense that he has untapped potential and he just will not be reaching that potential at Colorado. He was someone who comes over from Alabama kind of in a weird situation. They didn't know how to use him. They played him at running back a couple times and then obviously over at linebacker, but he is no longer with the team. And I think when I look at this linebacker room, because obviously they did get some pass rushers. They went out and got guys like Keaton Wade, BJ Green, and they have some guys there. But you look at this linebacker room, and now it's Brendan Gant, who is like a hybrid safety linebacker guy. So he's a little undersized. He hasn't played a lot, and they want him to do good things, but is he capable of being a full-time starting linebacker? We don't know. They have Levante Bentley, who improved down the stretch of this past season, but he eventually lost his spot at the beginning of the year to Juwan Mitchell, who was on the team for about a week and a half, and then he ended up taking the starting spot from Bentley. Bentley earned it back, but obviously that he's kind of the most experienced, most proven guy in the room. Then they have Jalen Wester, who I think obviously was graded as one of the best run defenders in all of college football at linebacker. I still think he's undersized. You guys always get on me for saying that, but let me just, like, comparing him to Bentley, you just look at their size, and he's listed at not LeJohntay Wester, excuse me, Jalen Wester. Sorry, mixed up the Wester twins. Jalen Wester, the linebacker, he comes in and this is off of Colorado's site. So all you guys tell me he's bigger than that. This is Colorado's listing him as this 6 foot 205. For reference, Levante Bentley, he is listed at, drum roll please, 6 foot 230. So he's got 25 pounds on him. So obviously at 205, he's kind of built like a running back. And if he could play well, if he could tackle, then albeit that's great. But again, you look at this linebacker room, and all I see are Brendan Gant, who we don't know what he is because he hasn't played a lot for Colorado. Levante Bentley is the most proven commodity. You have Jalen Wester, who is undersized, comes from Florida Atlantic. Can he make the adjustment to this level? And then all of a sudden, that's it. There is no more. There's redshirt freshman Victory Johnson and Kofi Taylor Barrocks, and then Kieran Garcia, who's a true freshman. So they have three freshmen essentially, and then three guys that are more experienced, but obviously not too experienced. So 6 scholarship linebackers will not get it done. I can promise you that. They're very thin at that position. That is, and I said this a week ago, I said it a month ago, the linebacker room is my biggest concern for this team. I think a lot of the stopping the run hinges on the linebackers and their ability to help clog up gaps and make plays in the backfield. And if this group can't do that, it's going to be a long year. It doesn't matter how good the defensive line is. It doesn't matter how good the secondary is in coverage, because teams will just pick apart these linebackers. And Colorado is extremely thin at linebacker, and losing Demoy Kennedy, who kind of had that sideline to sideline athleticism. He was someone last year who was drawing a lot of buzz in spring ball, and now he's going to be on his third school in 3 years. And so tough loss there, tough swing and a miss on the evaluation for him. But yeah, it happens. So to recap, David Connor is no longer on the team, but according to Brian Howell, he could be back. Demoy Kennedy is gone, and then Arden Walker has a broken hand, so he will be out for some time as well. When we come back, we're going to be talking about this wide receiver battle that I think is a bigger deal than people realize. But first, a word from our sponsors over at Nissan. This week's March Madness bracket highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, we're picking one team that stands out, a team that pushed it further than the rest. Just like any of the all new 2024 Nissan SUVs, these guys were able to take it to the next level. The Yukon Huskies can only be described as an armada. This top-seeded team is as hardcore as it gets, so it's no wonder they've landed the top overall seed in the NCAA tournament. They're one of the favorites to win it all, and despite four of the Power 6 conference champions standing in their way in the East region. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada to go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Again, that's shopNissanUSA.com. This episode of Locked On Buffs is also brought to you by our sponsors over at Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. I want to thank you guys again for getting me to 5,000 subscribers. Really appreciate all the support that you give. We're talking about the wide receiver battle, and I think we have a new kind of candidate to kind of change things up. And he's not new in the sense like he's a new player, but he's new in the sense in like, where have you been, sir? We're going with, because when I had Scott Proctor on, he projected his starting three, and it was Wester, Shepard, and Hunter. I had the starting three of Shepard, Horn, and Hunter. And so obviously Jimmy Horn is kind of like that the Jimmy Horn LeJounte Wester battle is the one that everyone's watching. It's like, who is going to win out between those speedy Floridians, those speedy route runners, those slot guys that could kind of shimmy and shake all the way through the defense. But that's not the one I'm talking about. I'm talking about the battle that hasn't even happened yet because Will Shepard's not there. The battle between Omarion Miller and one Mr. Will Shepard. Omarion Miller is being raved about at spring ball. And it's only been one day, so obviously things could change. But new wide receivers coach Jason Phillips was like, yeah, I'm starting to fall in love with this guy. Like, he loves Omarion Miller. He's got size. He's got hands. He's got that elite ability to come down with everything. I think the USC game last year had me convinced that he was going to be like, I thought he was going to assert himself as one of the top receivers. I genuinely thought he was going to kind of slide in there. But the 6'2", basically 200-pound wide receiver out of Louisiana plays in 10 games total, had 11 catches for 234 yards and a score against he had 7 catches, 196 yards and a score against USC. And then he had 4 catches the rest of the year. And it was like, where'd he go? Like, hello, Omarion, where'd you go? And now it seems like he's kind of built his confidence. He's kind of learned from whatever mistakes he made. And now he's kind of taking advantage of the fact that not everyone's there. He's taking advantage of the departures. He's taking advantage of the open spots. And I think Omarion Miller could be pushing for that starting spot. So then it's like, if you're a guy like Will Shepard who isn't there yet, it's interesting to say the least, because obviously with Will Shepard is a big proven wide receiver from the SEC. And he's like, okay, so you have an abundance of weapons. And I've been talking about this wide receiver room all offseason because I'm very excited. I think last year I was excited because I thought Xavier Weaver would be a star, and he was. But this year, I think the room has a chance to be more balanced. And I think Omarion Miller is going to take someone's job, or he's at least at a bare minimum, he's going to be taking snaps away or catches away from someone who we thought was going to be astronomical. So look out for this wide receiver battle. I'll keep you guys covered on it all offseason long, because let me tell you, we all know that Shedeur Sanders is one of the best quarterbacks in the country, but big but here, he needs weapons that can consistently show out, ball out, and just be there. This wide receiver group down the stretch was kind of a no-show at times. Like, Travis Hunter was pretty much the most consistent one. Xavier Weaver had some moments as well, but the rest of them, it was like, okay, we had Tavares Dawson early in the year. We had Jimmy Horn Jr., he was kind of a no-show at times. He was dropping passes. He was not as consistent as he once was. And so I think Omarion Miller is kind of taking that next step. And the better he does in spring, the better he positions himself to be a starter in fall camp. Because even though spring does not and will not decide not quarterback battles, position battles, it does kind of give you the pecking order for fall camp. And there's a certain point in fall camp where if you're just able to sustain that level by week 3 of fall camp or whatever, we'll just say week 3, that's the starters. Those are the starters, because they're now turning and focusing on, for Colorado being North Dakota State, they don't have time to have position battles that go all the way up to week 1 or whatever it may be. So I think Omarion Miller could end up being a starter right away. And I think someone's going to have to pry the job out of his hands if he keeps performing like he does, because he already has that rapport with Shedeur. Oh, that kind of rhymed. He already has that rapport with QB1, and he already showed flashes of what he could be. And now he's got the wide receivers coach gushing over him. I think that's a great position to be in if you're one Mr. Omarion. When we come back, we're going to be talking about no cold for Shedeur Sanders. Does he not? Coach Prime doesn't want to play for a cold team that plays in the cold in the NFL. Will they pull an Eli Manning, or will things work out? I'll talk about that when I come back. But first, a word from our sponsors over at FanDuel. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets, because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers could get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. I'm telling you right now, look for Purdue to get upset. It happens every year. Look for Colorado to make a little run. They have Boise State up first. Can they make a run to like the Sweet 16 or the round of 32? Go place a wager on the Buffs. Go see how they do, because the Buffs are looking to make some noise. They got NBA caliber talent. They got some big men. They got size. They got shooting. They got it all. So go check it out. Again, that's visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down those nets. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Like I say, I appreciate all the support. Thank you guys for subscribing, liking, all that. Make sure to give me 5 stars on Apple and Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. Give me those 5 stars so that way we could keep growing. We're talking about no cold for Shedeur. And no, I'm not talking about like little sniffles. Shedeur Sanders does not have a cold, per my knowledge. And that's not what we're talking about here. In a recent report, Deion Sanders, his father and coach, revealed that he does not want, and he was talking to Mad Dog Russo, the guy that's on First Take, and he's obviously a very famous radio host. If you guys weren't familiar, he's talking about his son going to the NFL, and he says, "Let me tell you something," and this is a quote, "Let me tell you something that I have a problem with, and that this kid could flat out play. I think he's the best on the board this year for sure. A kid that's coming from California for the last couple of years, right, and went to Oklahoma. That's not terribly cold. Chicago's cold, man." Talking about Caleb Williams. You got to think about that kind of stuff when you're talking about a young man. Like, see, when you take a guy from Ohio State and you bring him to Chicago, okay, I can understand that. But from California to Chicago, not only that, 1 or 2 more games in the NFL, 17 games. Come on, man. You got to factor that stuff in. That matters more. Like, I don't want my kid, Shedeur, going nowhere cold next year. He grew up in Texas. He played in Jackson, played in Colorado. Season's over before it gets cold in Colorado. I'm just thinking way ahead. I don't want that for him. So it's like, okay, that's interesting to say the least. If you think of which teams need a quarterback, obviously the teams that stand out as cold teams are teams that play in the cold for me. Most of them don't need quarterbacks. The Eagles have Jalen Hurts. The Commanders are probably going to take Drake May or Jaden Daniels, from LSU. The Packers have Jordan Love. The Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes. The Bills have Josh Allen. The Bengals have Joe Burrow. Ravens have Lamar Jackson. But then you take a look over at the New York teams. Aaron Rodgers, possibly a vice president candidate. I don't know what he's up to. How long does he have to play football? Don't know what his plans are, but he's also like 41 or something. I believe I think he's 41. Let me see. Aaron Rodgers' age. He's 40, turning 41 in December. So he is up there in age. The Giants, they have Daniel Jones, who I think we could all say by now is not that guy. And then they brought in Drew Lock to kind of compete with him. Are either of those guys that guy? Probably not. So those are 2 teams that it gets chilly up there. Shedeur could end up going there. And then the team that all of you guys, all the Coloradoans, y'all want Shedeur to play in Denver. And it gets cold in Denver. Does Coach Prime want to play in Denver? No. So do I think in most cases this would matter if a famous dad, like if Caleb Williams' dad, was like, you know what? We're not doing Chicago. Like Caleb is not going to play in Chicago. Do you think the NFL would care? Probably not. They probably wouldn't. They'd probably be like, Caleb, please get a hold on your circle, if you will. Or if they were like, Jaden Daniels was like, I only want to play in the South. And they're like, you know what? Tough. Like, we do not care. Welcome to Washington, D.C. Welcome to Maryland. This is your state flag, by the way. You are now a Commander. But Deion Sanders, I think if he wanted to, he has enough pull. He has enough cachet. And I don't think he should do this because I think this would kind of, and especially in this day and age, I think it would set up Shedeur for a really tough situation. Kind of pull an Archie Manning and be like, you know what, Eli's not playing for the Chargers. He wants to play elsewhere, so he wouldn't end up with the Giants. I think Deion Sanders could do that. I think that would put a lot of extra unnecessary pressure on Shedeur. I think Shedeur is kind of one of those guys where you throw him in any situation, he'll be fine. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I would be curious to see like if the first 3 picks are like even the Panthers. I know it doesn't get freezing down there, but it's not the warmest. Like, is he only wanting West Coast teams? Is he hoping the Cowboys take him, the Falcons maybe? Like, what are the teams that Coach Prime obviously wants Shedeur to play for, or the cities that he wants him to play for? Because I don't think it's really something that you get to choose. But if anyone has sort of like the cachet and the gall to do it, it would be Coach Prime. Like he is brave enough to try it. He knows his value. He knows Shedeur's value. And so I think that'd be really interesting to look out for. I think Shedeur may look out because if you look at the projected draft order right now, there's one. Let's see. I don't like that one. Let's see. The Raiders may need a quarterback. Obviously, they did sign Gardner Minshew, but let me just, it's really tough to find a 2025 mock draft, but okay, I'll just go with this one. Walter Football, they have the Titans with the first pick, which Nashville's pretty nice. I don't think it's too cold there. I go there frequently. It's chilly. I think that the hard part is like everybody has winter, so it's going to be cold wherever, but they have Will Levis. Does he kind of collapse already? The Giants, they have pick number 2. That could be Shedeur. The Patriots, obviously, they take Drake May this year, so they don't need a quarterback. The Rams, do they need a quarterback to replace Matthew Stafford? Maybe. Panthers, they have Bryce Young. Do they give him another chance? I feel like this will be a huge deciding factor. The Cardinals have Kyler Murray. I feel like they just signed him to a new deal. And then it's the Bears. They obviously have a quarterback or will have a quarterback in a few weeks. The Broncos, they need a quarterback, but do they take one this year? Does Bo Nix, who a lot of people project them to take, do they kind of figure something out? The Raiders have the 9th pick in this draft. Do they go J.J. McCarthy? And then it's the Falcons, who they have Kirk Cousins, so they probably don't need him. And then the Steelers, it's cold there. I think not playing in the cold may be harder than people realize for Shedeur Sanders. So that'll be something to look out for when the draft rolls around next year. Comment below what team you think Shedeur Sanders is the best fit for. Excuse me. Also, comment below if you think Omarion Miller starts, because I think he could. And then give me like another comment, 1 through 10, how concerned you are, 1 being the least, 10 being the most concerned about the linebackers room. I appreciate all your guys' support. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, give me those 5 stars. I will see you guys tomorrow. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day and stay safe.